we should be clear, when you're spending over 7% of your endowment and your attendance is static and you're continuing to collect, all you're doing is raising your expenses and not changing your revenue, you're putting yourself out of business in the next 30 years. So that's what we faced. So we did what everybody in this room has done. We tried blockbuster exhibitions. And guess what? Blockbuster exhibitions bring in new people, right? The ones on the left, sorry, all of your organizations have a version of this chart. The highest attended exhibitions are the ones with the most, here's another theme, the ones with the most familiar names and the most familiar images. The difference between the medium attended exhibitions and the heavy attended exhibitions is 100% difference. So how much resource do you have to pour into something that's winding up in the middle to make it something that's on the left-hand side of that? But I don't want to stray too far into marketing territory. The point of this is to say, if we do a blockbuster, we got familiar names, familiar images, people show up. In fact, we can outperform the same exhibitions in other markets, do the same as or better as it relates to market penetration rate. But we are a 2 million person market. We can't make it pay out. Again, all we're doing is raising our expenses, even though we're getting more people. So, a hypothesis was formed. That doesn't work. That wasn't working for us. Sure, we were getting more people, but it wasn't making us sustainable. And so we started to look around at what do we have that we can rely on? What is our differentiator? And even though we were known as the Indianapolis Museum of Art, we also had this incredible 50-acre garden, botanical garden, and 100-acre art and nature park. Now, I hope the takeaway here is not you need a 50-acre garden and a 100-acre art and nature park, but we'll get to that in a second. So, the first change, this is where the change begins. We changed our mission. The trustees at the time, I can't even say we, this is before I got there. Trustees at the time changed the mission. We had the same mission almost everyone in this room has. Protect, preserve, exhibit, collect. We were object focused. It was our mission. Think about how all museums are built. We are Indiana limestone fortresses, built to protect the objects, to collect them. Our trustees decided, no, we are here to enhance lives. We are focused on people. We are going to do that through exceptional experiences. And you heard Elise talking about that. With art and nature. And for us, art and nature, going back to the slide before, are going to be for the first time on equal footing. Because the hypothesis here was, okay, tulips are cheaper than Van Goghs, and they might be more accessible. So what does that mean? We did not have an awareness problem. We didn't even have a trial problem. 94% of the market had heard of us, and over half had been sometime in their life. But only 17% or 16, rounding errors, 17% had visited last year. 5% thought they were members, 10% considered themselves promoters. So we need to get people back and engaged, because we know once they come, they have an amazing time, but how are we going to get them to come back? So what Halverson did is they took the 50 million leisure activities, X dining and drinking, and they put it into 8 buckets, roughly the same size. And they were able to explain the differences among those 8 buckets, and these buckets are buckets of motivation. What were people seeking to do, statistically by how they answered the question? What were they seeking to do? What was their motivation when they went and did these things? This is a chart that basically says become more social, become more social and tap into things that are playful and more fun while maintaining your core. So this becomes, now we start talking about nurturing our core while creating new invitations, new reasons for trial. All right, that's we can understand that basically. And then we took that quantitative research and turned it over to a branding agency who did qualitative research. And if you ever want to find out what it means to be an audience-focused or cultural organization, I suggest that you have somebody go into people's living rooms and share with you hours and hours and hours of videotape about other people talking about you, including former members. And what we heard over and over and over and over is a museum is indoors. It's not a place to bring kids because my kids are going to mess everything up. It's static, it doesn't change. By which they mean it's still paintings hanging on a wall. They, you want to jump through the screen and go, but we rotated that gallery. To this group in this city, it was, every time I go, the experience is the same. And they did, the Young and Laramore did two key things, I think, that they shared with us. They asked these folks, first of all, to describe their, to diagram out in a pie chart their typical day off, and then to do the same for their ideal day off. And there was no difference between the two, except that in the ideal day off, there was more time for napping and drinking. That's not only a theme, it's an important takeaway, and I'll get to that in a second. All right, so no difference between the typical day off and the ideal day off. And to remind myself where I am, no difference between the typical day off and the ideal day off. And then they gave them another activity. And they said, pretend I'm your friend and you want to convince me to go to the art museum this weekend. And they literally did this. We always say we want to do something new, and we never make it. Let's go to the art. I mean, it's vegetables. We're vegetables. We're good for you. We always say we want to do something new, and we never do. Let's go make it. So for this market in this city, different probably than all of us in this room, and this was really tough for us as a room full of highly educated, passionate museum goers. This group, this audience that we were going after, clings to the familiar. If the barrier is that I think that an art museum is indoors and not for kids, and I'm trying to get you, now this is where the learnings might differ for you, but we were trying to get them to come and try us through a different kind of, by removing that barrier of art museum, then maybe I shouldn't be, if I'm trying to invite you to a garden experience because I think that's more accessible and more familiar, maybe I should remove the invitation to an art museum. Now, again, I'm not saying that you need 150 acres. That's not the learning here. For us, what we had was a botanical garden, and so when it comes to balancing curated and familiar, we went ahead and tried an experiment called Spring. Happens every year, by the way. And we launched an Audubon exhibition, 2 contemporary art exhibitions that were artists today reacting to Audubon, bird cams, bird walks, 250,000 spring blooms. So a campus, now we were inviting you to a campus-wide experience. This is an important learning because remember, we're still nurturing our core. We still are on mission. So we had to give ourselves something that would help us identify how we are going to articulate and make sure that we are balancing that curated with the familiar. And so the lens through which we put everything now is, are we curating memorable experiences? Curated means we bring the expertise, memorable means worth talking about, and experiences means active participation is integral. We put everything through that lens, curating memorable experiences, and we think, you know what? Lines up with that pretty well.